Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Marriage Matters, brought to you by Marriage Beyond the Breach. This is your girl, Valerie Mason Chase, and this cut up over here is none other than
Cookie Man.
the Cookie Man, my husband of 41 years.
She got it right.
Right, I said 41 this time. I didn't say 40.
That's right.
Okay. So, hey, Jackie. Hey, Liz. Thank you guys so much for watching, and those of you who are joining us. Today we are going to talk about something that has affected many people in their relationships. We call it the prodigal spouse. That's what we're going to talk about today. And Cookie Man, tell me what your experience is with that. I know the guest that we have for today started a Facebook page by the name of the Prodigal's Perspective, and both of us were members on that page for a while.
Correct.
And actually, we still are. But what's your experience?
Well, my experience, actually, I don't know if I'm going to say experience, but from what I would watch and read regarding the prodigal and where I was at that time in my life, I have to be honest, because I knew you were starting with your faith and you had strong belief.
I wasn't starting with my faith.
Right. Well, true.
I had the faith
This is true.
Yeah.
But what I saw is a commitment to stand and wait for things to change. You had a belief, you would pray. And quite frankly, I took advantage of that because as the prodigal, that would be me, right?
Right.
And the situation we found ourselves in, being separated, and I was doing whatever, I kind of took advantage, believing that no matter what I was doing, that eventually I could come back, or you would allow our relationship to continue because of where you were and what you believed in the prodigal teachings and such. And I come to realize, as we're talking about it now, that I was being selfish and taking advantage of how you felt to continue to do what I wanted to do in my own life.
That's interesting. So what you're saying is, instead of at that time being moved in a positive way by my faith in God and my belief in that our marriage will be reconciled, you took advantage of that.
Yes.
And how did you do that? What did that look like?
Again, it just it emboldened me, if that's correct, to believe that no matter how much I was doing, eventually I'd be able to come back home no matter what, and I wouldn't have to work at it.
Okay.
I wasn't thinking about. I didn't want to believe that I would. And as long as where you were spiritually, I was okay.
Wow. That's very interesting. And you know what? There may be some people, husbands or wives, or in that position, who may be feeling the same way. And one of the things that is kind of, I don't know if controversial is the word, but that there's always this question about contact versus no contact. Should the spouse who is at home standing and believing God for the restoration of their marriage, should they allow contact between themselves and the spouse who was the prodigal out there in the world doing their own thing? And, there are two schools of thought on that. I mean, it could go either way. And actually, in our situation, there was both. Because initially, I did allow contact. We were still seeing each other. We were still dating. He would come over. And we were even still involved in sexual intimacy. But then there came a time when I decided no more contact. Nada, nothing, zip, zilch, stay away from me. Don't call me, don't text me, don't email me, don't send me no smoke signals, don't send me no Facebook Messenger, nothing. I completely cut off contact. And, I don't know, and honestly speaking, I don't know if that was something I did on my own because it got to be too emotionally painful to continue with that contact. or if it was something that I heard God tell me to do. I have to be honest with you. I don't know. I'm more inclined to believe that I made the decision for no contact because of the emotional pain that I was experiencing by having the contact. You know, we spend time together. You'd come over because we were, you know, he was living in his own place and I was living in mine. And he'd come over, he'd spend time, he'd spend the night. And then I'm saying to myself, well, tomorrow he gonna be out there with somebody else. Okay. And then I also had to ask myself, was my allowing or engaging in contact with you under those circumstances, was that a way of me trying to manipulate the situation?
I don't know. I never felt you were manipulating the situation. I took advantage of the situation. As long as there wasn't that no contact rule, it became easy to continue to move in a direction I was moving. Yeah. I only had to be kind of accountable when I was here or when I showed up. When I wasn't here, I didn't have to be accountable for nothing.
And he wasn't.
And that became easy. It became easy and less stressful, because obviously when you're in a marriage and there are issues and you have to be accountable for your behavior, it is stressful when you haven't done those things in the past.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to give a shout out to some of those who are watching. Liz, Jackie, my nephew Kimba, Jennifer, and Pearl. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. So what was it like for you when I made that transition from contact to absolutely no contact whatsoever?
Well, the first time, and it's funny, we spoke on this just yesterday. The first time it felt like a boulder just fell on me. I was like, really? Wow. She's really not going to talk to me anymore? Really? And I would try little ways to talk and everything else.
He even tried the grandbaby.
And I would say, wow, okay. But again, I was so full of myself, and I believed that this is just a little, it'll pass. You know, she'll start talking in a while, but days. No, don't get me wrong now. Her stopping it didn't, because I wasn't ready to come home, for lack of a better phrase. So I continued to conduct myself the way I was. But it still was gnawing at me more times than I even wanted to realize then, or want to admit to now, that, wow, she's really not talking to me. Yeah. No matter what, she's not picking up the phone. And it became a heavy burden to carry, because I've known it for so long and I wanted that contact. I needed that contact, and it wasn't there, but I still wasn't ready to do what was necessary to open that door up again. So it took a while to get to the point where she would talk or spend some time. And even with that, there was still some slips up, some mess ups, you know, obviously being human, not being perfect. It took a while to be sitting here today having this conversation, even having the conversation we have away from the screen, where we can talk about situations that in years past was painful, was hurtful, had us both angry and all. But now it's a different day.
It's very, very different. So if you could recall, what was it, or what were the things, if there was more than one thing, that kind of led you to feel that you were ready to take that step and to come home and to do the right thing and to really be a husband and to be faithful?
There's really no one thing.
Okay.
If there was a center of everything, it was my love for you. That was always the center, and has always been the center. No matter what was going on, I could always feel that. I could touch it in a sense. I could smell it. It was something I desired. And to make a little light of it, I was getting older. The last thing I wanted to do was to live by myself and have no one to rest my head on. So you had to make some tough choices. And I tell you, fellas, and I tell you, not just fellas, but people in general, it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I mean, even a couple of weeks ago, I'm trying to think what happened. Even where we are now, things still come up that become very tense, or she becomes very suspicious. I forgot what, something in the bedroom that was going on. I don't know, but things still come up. The biggest thing now is we're able to deal with it a lot better. I am. Especially because there was a lot of times when I would get asked, it was probably my phone, I felt she was in there too long, and I wanted to take it from you. Been in there 10 minutes should be enough. You in there 30 minutes, and I had to learn. I'm still learning how to do. That's still a little sore spot with me, even though there's nothing in there to be found. The fact that I feel it's mine, and you've been in there past your limit.
Like as if I have a limit, okay? And that's the thing that we kind of go back and forth on. Now, we can agree that absolute transparency is the order of the day. There must be absolute, complete transparency. That means that there's nothing hidden. That means that we know each other's password to everything, the phone, the email, their whatever, complete transparency. But that's a lot easier for me than it is for Frank. And like you said, it doesn't mean that he's still doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that there's anything in his phone. But there are some people who struggle with their spouse looking in their phone. And Frank has struggled with that now.
And I still do.
He's a whole lot better than he used to be. Because back when we first reconciled, and if I would be looking in his phone, he'd be standing over my shoulder. What you looking at? What you looking for? Who, all that. And then I would get totally pissed because now I feel like, hey, it's supposed to be transparency here. Why you clocking me? Don't be clocking me if I'm looking in your phone, because listen, there was one, I remember there was a sermon that my pastor Darius Daniels gave. This was several years ago. And it was on relationships. And one of the things he said, well, listen, you used your phone to cheat on me. So then I have a right, so to speak. I'm paraphrasing. Then it stands to reason I'm going to look in your phone. And
understood.
It's not like I'm going every day, trying to see what's in his phone, trying to see who he's talking to, who he's texting or anything. I don't. It just randomly comes up. I may say, okay, babe, may I see your phone? What? And he'll say, okay, well, it's right over there. I go in it. And most of the time, he's giving me the password a gazillion times. And I always forget. I always forget what the password is. And I have to look. I have to ask him for it. But wait, I know he could probably say.
I just remember.
Wait, no.
I just remembered what the big argument was. Like you said, transparency. Yeah, babe, here's the phone.
Oh, no.
She forgot the password.
I forgot the password.
And for the life of me, so did I. I kept trying to key it in. I kept getting it wrong.
Yeah.
And my wife is now going to accuse me of, this is a farce. You just faking the funk. You got something to hide. That's why you can't remember the password. And I said, but babe,
I thought you were pretending that you didn't.
I forgot. And I said, but I wouldn't continue to try to get in 10, 15,000 times. So that became a serious bone of contention, to the point where I went outside and I was going to get I finally took the phone back because she had been in there after she got in. She had been in there too long. I was so upset. I went to get my paper, smoke a cigarette. I called my oldest son. I said, I didn't tell you. I said, son,
you sure didn't tell
your
me
mother just drove me crazy because of blah, blah, blah. I couldn't get into my phone. I couldn't remember the password. And it became a big argument. Oh, my goodness. I just needed years before I would have used that as a reason to cheat.
Right.
Argument and
Absolutely.
stress.
Yeah.
This time I just went to get my paper, have a cigarette, come on back home. And I think I did talk to you and probably apologize to some extent. But yeah, so like I said, you still deal with some issues, even no matter how much the relationship has gotten better, things still come up. The thing is how you're going to handle them.
Yes, that is a key. And Lisa said, I made you nervous. So Lisa, thank you so much for watching. Shasha, Sandra, and of course, I think I already said my sister Jackie Lawrence, Felicia McCain. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Share, and continue with the comments. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, because that's what we are here for. Our whole goal of this is not just to flippantly sit here and talk about our own stuff, but our goal is to be a blessing to other couples who either have gone or are going through the same or similar situation, and they're struggling with how to navigate it. And that's what we're here for. We are here to try to help as many people as we possibly can to get through this process, because it's not easy. It's not easy when you're going through it. And even after reconciliation, listen, that's when the work really begins.
Yeah.
Because once we got back together, it wasn't as if, oh, now everything is all hunky-dory, everything is all perfect. No, far from it.
Actually, excuse me, babe, it kind of felt worse. Because now, like I said, when I was out there and seeing Val, there was no accountability. Now I'm accountable for every freaking thing. And of course, I'm still a babe trying to make this work. So everything she's saying and asking me is pissing me off. You know, I'm home. I'm here. Why you bothered? I had the mentality, the pain.
Yeah.
The pain.
Oh, yeah. What is that saying they have out now? The struggle is real. And, you know, that definitely would fit for us, because when we got back together, we had a lot of work to do. And I'm just going to say this. It wasn't all work that Frank had to do. It wasn't all work that Frank had to do. I will say it again. Even though he was the one out there, and I was the one home, and I was the one believing God and trusting God for the reconciliation of our marriage, it wasn't only him who had to do the work. I had work to do also, because establishing and reestablishing and rebuilding trust and intimacy is something that we both had to do. We both had to work on. It wasn't just a matter of him being accountable. It was also me learning how to trust what he's saying and believe him, and not being on his back and on his case all the time. Because when he first came back home, I was like a grizzly bear on his back. I really was. You know, it bothers me to say that now, and I'm not proud of the way that I was when he first came home, and the way that I still am sometimes. There are days when I'm still a bear on his back, because something will trigger. Here's the thing. Something will happen. He'll either say something, or he'll have an expression on his face, and I'll say, there you go. There you go. That old Frank. And then he starts doing this number. He starts laughing at me, right? He starts laughing, and then I really get mad. Because now he's poking fun. He's laughing, because from his perspective, he's not the old Frank anymore. But I'm seeing something, and I'm thinking that he either has or he's going to revert back to his old ways. And then I get angry, and then I'll say something to him. And depending upon the mood that you're in, I'm in either good. He may or may not say something back to me, and then we'll kind of go back and forth and go at it for a little bit until we kind of get ourselves together. And then we can sit down and we can talk about Mochina. Hey, Mochina, we can sit down and we can talk about it. And that's a huge difference from the way it was before. Absolutely. Because before, when we got into argument, I mean, Frank was out the door. He was out the door, and I said, I know where he going. I know exactly where he going. And then I get even more mad. And it was like a vicious cycle, vicious cycle that we were on. We would just spiral completely down that rabbit hole. But where we are now, praise God. Where we are now, praise God. And I give all the glory to God, because I have to tell you, if it were not for God being instrumental in our relationship, we would not be sitting here. Absolutely. That's just the plain and simple of it. It was God. That's why I call our marriage now. I tell everybody, our marriage now is something the Lord made. Frank ain't make it. I ain't make it. We ain't make it together. It was the Lord who brought us back together and who has our relationship where it is right now, at a place that I know for myself, I never thought I would see our marriage the way it is right now. What about you, babe?
I definitely didn't. I mean, like I said again, there were a lot of times when I knew, or I could say I knew. Also, I wanted to end up back here, but then I'd hear that little voice in the back of my head. You don't want to deal with that sugar honey iced tea. You don't want to handle it. So just keep on doing whatever's happening. But I know it was short term. Yeah.
And we have not really talked about this on our broadcast before, but when there is an extramarital affair, it's not just the husband and wife who's involved. There's a third person who's involved. And sometimes we overlook the feelings that individual may have.
Wow. Yes.
Because see, that really and truly, that's an innocent bystander in some regard. Now, I say in some regard because the person knows that they are dealing with someone who is married. However, they are going by the information that is given to them by the person who's cheating with them. So that, I think, has to be taken into account as well. And I never wanted to even think about that, but that individual's feelings came into play too, because hey D, how you doing, D? Because she was counting on having a long-term relationship with my husband. She was counting on that. And she was going based on what Frank was telling her. So when he decided to come back home and he ended that relationship and he decided to come back home, I'm sure she felt some type of, I know she felt some type of way because the woman texted me. She texted me. She called me. All that kind of crazy, man. Yeah, we went through all of that. What you want to say, babe?
I hear you say she, making reference to me as opposed to they.
Well, that's true.
The people, they. But someone listening who don't really know us, they might just think it's just me.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, so be clear.
But only because I'm talking right now.
That's what it is.
So when I'm talking, it's going to be all about what you did.
Got it.
When you talk, you could say what you want to say. But the bottom line is, that there's another person involved.
And like Val said, this is the first time that we've been in each other's company that I can recall even touching upon it even slightly. And I'm quite surprised. I mean, it's a reality.
It's a reality.
Whether it's someone I might have been with or her, like I said, that other person has feelings. And
other person has feelings.
Like you have feelings, they have feelings too. So I'm surprised, but it's true.
It's very, very true. And it's not an easy thing to even consider or talk about because listen, I wanted to just focus on just Frank and I, okay, and totally disregard the feelings of the other individual. But like I said, that person is going by the information that is given to them by the spouse who's out there cheating. So, and I'm saying that for this reason. If you are, if you're married and your spouse is out there cheating with someone, don't go after the person they're cheating with. Don't start calling them or texting them or calling them all kind of bad names and, that witch and that witch. And, you ain't really saying witch, but, you're saying something else. Because it's really between you and your spouse. Your spouse is the one that's accountable. Your spouse is the one who really owes a sense of loyalty to you, not that other individual. So that's the reason why I just want to talk about that. So we have with us a very special guest with us today, Brother Charles Case. So I'm going to bring Brother Charles on. Let me bring him on. There you go. Hey, Brother Charles.
Hello.
How you doing?
Oh, doing well. Just got home, so sorry about that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And I'm sorry your wife could not be with us today, but I am happy to have you here representing the Prodigal's Perspective. So before we get started, what I'd like to read your bio and let everyone know who you are. Okay? So, and Charles and Sabrina Case, Charles' his lovely wife, with his wife is Sabrina. They hail from Weston, Oklahoma. Charles is disabled, but still has a small farm with his family where they have sheep for livestock. They describe themselves as just regular people who deal with everyday things. Unfortunately, they have also had to deal with COVID and getting through that. Like we have all been so severely impacted by that through last couple of years. Charles and Sabrina have 2 children, a son and a daughter, who are both adults. Their daughter is in college, and their son lives at home with Charles and Sabrina. Charles and his wife created, through the leading of God, a Facebook group entitled The Prodigal's Perspective. It is a group centered on God and geared towards helping those who are standing with God in hopes of a marriage restoration. Charles says he has unfortunately lived with multiple addictions throughout the years. His main addiction was alcohol, and he has been clean and sober for over 6 years. Congratulations on that accomplishment, Charles. Charles says there are different battles that we face from time to time, but with God's help, we get through them. He believes there are always things that we must learn daily with our walk with God, with our life, and with our spouse. Charles says he would love to see many wonderful and godly marriage restorations happen. And he believes God can make things happen that we may never be able to see coming. So, Charles, I want to again welcome you here on this episode of Marriage Matters, brought by Marriage Beyond the Breach. And I just want to remind everyone that I became familiar with you and with your Facebook group, The Prodigal's Perspective, during the time that Frank and I, we were separated. We were both a part of that Facebook group. And by the way, you've never met him, so here's my husband Frank.
How you doing?
Brother Charles.
All right, very nice to meet you.
So, Brother Charles, myself and many people, we're familiar with the biblical narrative about the prodigal son. First of all, right. What does the term prodigal mean? And how does the notion of a prodigal spouse relate to the story of the prodigal son?
Whenever I was going back over the some of the stuff that you had sent me this last week, I kind of went back over and was looking at it, and I ended up looking up the word prodigal, just to kind of see what it said, and so I'd have a better idea. And I'm actually using my tablet to look this up real fast because I want to make sure I say it right.
Yeah.
Because in a dictionary type of format, a definition of it is going to be spending money or resources freely and recklessly, wastefully, or living in a lavish scale is one way. The Merriam-Webster dictionary puts it a little bit differently. Well, crud. There it goes.
While Charles is looking that up, if any
I
of
don't
you
know.
Just put it there and let us know if you have any questions for us.
Basically it's in a dictionary format. It's simply saying that a prodigal means to just live wastefully, to do whatever, just to spend money however you want to, and just do things that just kind of exceed whatever life you're trying to live.
Yeah.
But then you have the biblical definition of it.
Yeah.
Which, whenever we look at the story of the prodigal son in Luke 15, because verses 11 through 24 is the younger son.
Right.
But then verse 25 to the end of Luke 15 is the older son. And so you actually have a biblical definition of prodigal, meaning somebody that simply strays away from what is right and what is good, and at times will hold grudges and hold anger. Because when you look at the younger son, he simply strayed away.
Yeah.
And he went to live his life and got away from what was good and right. But the older son held on to anger, held on to resentment, didn't want to forgive. And so for me, actually, looking at a life as a prodigal, both spouses can be prodigal at times.
Okay.
Because you have the one spouse that decides to be unfaithful and decides to stray away and decides to go out on their own and do what they want to do, spend money how they want to, live as they want to, want to have, things their way and be in control. But at times you also have the other spouse, the faithful spouse that says, I'm not going to let this go. They've angered me. They've hurt me. And I'm not going to forget it. Yeah. I'm not going to let this be. And just as if that prodigal spouse, the unfaithful one, decides to try to see what might be there, try to kind of get an idea, hey, I'm not, this may not really be what I'm wanting. But if the other spouse is hanging on to the anger like the older brother did, the older son, and says, this isn't right. Why should you get to feel anything good if I'm having to hurt?
Right.
If I've been hurt and you've done this to me. And so you have an aspect of both people can end up becoming a prodigal spouse in different aspects.
Okay. See, I never thought about the faithful spouse remaining home, who was home standing and believing God for the reconciliation. That is a very interesting way to look at it, because I never thought of the other spouse as potentially being a prodigal also. And so I want to ask you this. A lot of times in the Facebook group, and I have even thought this myself, I would see people say that it looks like the prodigal has just skipped off into the sunset and they're living happy as a clam without a care in the world. And that's essentially what I thought too during the time that Frank and I were separated. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, and it can seem like that. And it's simply because they hold that appearance of being happy, believing that they're getting what they want, believing that things are working out the way that they would like for them to be. Like with my wife and I, there's a lot of times that I felt that I deserved something better than what I was getting. And so when I tried to live my life the way I wanted to, I believed I was getting that.
Yeah.
Even though I was living in a sense that, and I didn't see it at the time, but I was living in a sense that I had the worldly happiness because things felt good to me. Yeah. Instead of being true, it was that temporary happiness, even though I didn't realize it was really just temporary.
Yeah, because when you were in the midst of it, it felt like it was meeting a need, and it felt like what you wanted at that time. So you felt you were happy, and like you said, it was like a temporary happiness, a band-aid, so to speak, on a cover-up for what you really needed.
Right.
Yeah, that's
right. It's yes.
You know, Brother Charles, recently I was reading this blog on family life, and the blog was entitled "Loving a Prodigal Who Seems to Hate You." And this is what it said. This is what I read there. Prodigals need more than tough love. They need a rugged love. And rugged love, according to them, is described as strong enough to face evil, tenacious enough to do good, courageous enough to enforce consequences, sturdy enough to be patient, resilient enough to forgive, and trusting enough to pray boldly. And so what are your thoughts on that? How do you respond to that? That notion of rugged love?
Well, I can agree with most of them. You know, especially the strong enough to face what is going on, the evil aspects of it, the things the enemy is trying to do. Many times the enemy will use the prodigal, the unfaithful spouse, the prodigal spouse, to hurt the faithful spouse, to try to get them to go on, or try to get them to think it's not worth it. Or, I mean, you know, a person will say words that they don't actually think about most of the time.
Yeah.
Or they think about it afterwards and think, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but oh well, I can't do anything now. Or, and actually, to me, that's also another aspect that the enemy uses for the prodigal spouse is, boy, look at the things that I said. How is my spouse ever actually going to forgive me for that? And gets them to doubt things, which we see even with the temptations of Christ, with Jesus. I mean, the devil knows how to use words,
yes,
to get us to believe what he wants us to believe. And if we don't understand the truth behind what we're saying and what he's getting us, you know, what he kind of leads us to say, then we won't be able to use the way Jesus did to say, no, let me tell you what the actual true way of saying that is.
Yeah.
And so I agree with that part. I agree with the, you know, tenacious enough to do good. Which even for a female, I know in Micah 6:8 it says, you know, man, what does God expect of you? And really this can go for females, you know, what does God expect of you? To do right, to be merciful, and to be just. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing a little bit there. And so it's tenacious enough to do good, to realize what they need to do, as far as I can't allow my anger, as Ephesians 4 says, I believe it's 4:26 says, don't let your anger cause you to sin.
Right.
So don't let your anger allow you to do something that you're going to wish you wouldn't have actually done. Which I believe that's where that tenacious enough to do good.
Yeah.
And sturdy enough to be patient. And one of the things that people have disagreed with me on, but it's the truth, and this is actually what the Bible says, is that patience actually means long suffering.
Yes.
You know, it's not, if we're going to be patient about something, that means that we're not going to be happy to wait.
Right. Yeah.
We're not wanting to wait. We don't want to have to wait for something. We want something to happen. And so it's that going through something in a possibly long period of time, no matter how short or long it actually is, it's still long in the process of.
And it don't feel good.
No, it doesn't feel good. But you know, there's an analogy I really believe that God kind of showed me, and to give kind of a short form of it, it's like if you're driving, if you're going on vacation and you're driving somewhere and you get your map out and your GPS now, and you map everything and you know exactly which route you're going to take, but then all of a sudden you have a breakdown. You get 2 flat tires. Your boss calls and says, hey, since I know that you're going this way, I will pay you extra if you can make these 2 stops for me and make sure things get, this paperwork gets taken care of very quickly.
Yeah.
And so you get all these detours and all these sidetracks. And the problem is that we focus sometimes so much on what this journey is that we say, when are we going to finally get to that destination, instead of just saying, let me see what's along the way here. And when we get to that destination, we're done.
Yeah.
And so,
that's because there are things along the way that we need to see. There are things along the way that we need to learn. There's things along the way that God needs to do in us and work in us, as well as our spouse, along the way. And it's not just about the destination.
Exactly. And that's what a large part of that belief is. And then resilient enough to forgive. And that's one of the hard parts.
That's really hard.
Hebrews 8:12 is one of the scriptures that I love, just simply because of what it says. Let me get over here to it. That's one of those I always like to make sure I read it the right way.
Okay.
It says, Hebrews 8:12, for I will be merciful toward their iniquities or their sins, and I will remember their sins no more.
No more. Yes.
And so, yes, we're human, so we can't forget the same way as God does. But what I have found what that is to mean for us is to say, he won't bring our stuff back up towards us.
Yes.
As to hold it against us. He's not going to come back after he's forgiven you and say, okay, but remember what you did on October 23rd, 1999?
Yeah.
He's not going to do that to us.
Right.
And so being resilient enough to forgive is to say, are you truly willing to never bring that back up and hold it against this person?
That's hard. I can tell you, Brother Charles, that is hard.
Very much so.
And my husband
attests to the fact of how hard that has been for me throughout our process, because especially when we first got back together, I wanted to remind that brother every chance I got of how he hurt me and what he had done to me and when he did it and where he did it and all that. But you were so right. Forgiveness indicates that, okay, I am giving up my right to bring this up and throw it in your face ever again, because if I'm doing that, then it begs the question, have I really forgiven? Have I really let it go? Yeah.
And what's that?
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, whenever we look at 1 Corinthians 13, we see the entire way to love unconditionally.
Yes.
Not hold wrongs, not remember things, not hold it against people, not to do, forgiveness can be unconditional also.
Yes.
And that's where I believe that's come from.
Yeah. And something I've also learned is that forgiveness can be unilateral. Even if the person doesn't ask for forgiveness, we can still extend forgiveness to that individual, even if they don't ask for it.
Right, and that's actually a deal I saw quite a while back. And I had a scripture that went with it, but I can't remember it right off the bat right now. But it says, one of the hardest things I ever did was forgive somebody who never asked for it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I want to read something for you. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 11 says, a word filthy spoken.
Fitly.
I ain't got my glasses on. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. Sometimes the spouse who is left engages in lengthy conversations with their prodigal, thinking they can argue their way back to restoration. How can a standard know when to speak and when to zip their lips? What's your take on that?
For me, it's really the only way the main way that anybody can learn to be able to say what needs to be said or shouldn't say what shouldn't need to be said at the time is, and I believe this with my whole heart, is that we get into prayer first thing in the morning before we do anything else.
Yeah.
You know, besides reading, but get into prayer and ask God, especially if you're in this type of situation that you're having to learn how to choose your words.
Yes.
And just ask God, look, I don't know what to say anymore. I don't know how to respond to things. Give me what I need to do what needs to be done.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just like in recovery. The first step is to admit that there's things you're not going to be able to do on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And to ask for help with that.
Yeah.
And in our daily lives, we have to do that also, to tell God, there's these things I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle them. You're going to have to show me. You're going to have to work through me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then work with and there's times that instead of actually speaking out of that resentment or that anger or that immediate hostility, is to stop and pray immediately right then and say, if I'm not supposed to say anything, keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I didn't with that. I can absolutely identify with that, because there were times when I definitely did cry out to God. I said, Lord, I don't know how to deal with this. I feel like I can't deal with it anymore. But it is a situation that I'm facing that I ultimately do have to deal with, but I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. I don't know when to say it. And if you don't help me, I know I'm going to say all the wrong thing, all at the wrong time, and I'm going to mess this up. Because, it's kind of like almost like a catch-22, because on the one hand, I wanted God and believed God for the restoration of my marriage, but at the same time, I felt like I wanted to punish my husband. I wanted to say mean things to him. I didn't want to be nice. I didn't want to be sweet. I didn't want to say kind stuff. I wanted to call him all kinds of names. But at the same time, I wanted my marriage restored. Right. So it's like a catch-22. Which is it, God? Mm-hmm. And that's a time when I had to rely completely on God. Because most of the time, brother, I didn't know what I was doing. Bottom line, I really just did not know what I was doing. So let's say the prodigal does decide to come home, that whatever happens in their lives while they're out there, however God works on their heart, and they do decide to come home, what should the spouse do to create an environment that is welcoming and that can be peaceful for when the prodigal does come home?
Really, it's just, to me, it's welcoming them. I mean, it's just simply letting them know you are welcome here. When we look at the story of the young son that came home, the father didn't wait at the house.
That's right.
He saw him. He saw a figure from far away. He probably didn't even realize it was actually his son, but he saw this figure, and it may have resembled the same style or something. But we can figure that this son did not return the same. One, he had went without food for we don't know exactly how long. He had been in this, this terrible area, in this terrible place. He's doing things that because we have to remember, Jesus was speaking to the Jews and telling this parable. So the father was a Jew. Mm-hmm. The father would have been a Jew. The son would have been a Jew. But he's been in the pig pen.
In the pig pen, right? Mm-hmm.
He was literally detestable to any other Jew. He would have been said. They would have said, "You need to have to stay away from us for 7 days at least until you are clean, before you can even come anywhere close to any of us."
Yeah.
But instead, the father ran and met him.
Yes. Yes.
Wrapped his arms around him. He didn't care how dirty he was. He didn't care what he smelled like, how he looked. He just simply wrapped his arms around him, and then he immediately told the servant, "Go get the best clothes. Go get that golden ring that signifies his is my son.
Yeah.
Get him sandals, so he's not barefoot any longer. Get him to a point that he feels welcomed again."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so really that's the most important part, is just saying you're welcomed.
Yeah.
You can come. It doesn't matter. You can come and we will go through this together.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together. Yeah.
Right.
And that's a good point. Because when the spouse comes home, there's still sometimes the residue on them of what their life was like when they were out there.
Yeah.
And you make that point, and it's so true about the father just wrapping his arms around the son. And he didn't care about the residue being there. He didn't care about the stink. He didn't care what he looked like. And that's a great point. So we who are home and our spouses are coming home, wrap our arms around them and try real hard.
Yeah.
Right. Because you get those things of, well, yeah, you can come home, but you can't bring that with you because I don't know where you got it from. I don't want this in the house. So there are a lot of issues you deal with.
Yeah. But
well, and talking about that, one thing that I had learned is that when you're returning home back to what is true and what is real, rather than where you've been, you should look at that stuff that you're trying to bring with you and say, you know what? This wasn't a part of what real life is.
Wow.
This is a part of what I wanted. And if I'm going to truly change all of this, then I need to actually put all this away. And we see that whenever, I can't remember the scripture right now, but I believe it's in 1 Corinthians where Paul had wrote that, whenever we're saved, when we're truly saved, we put our old self behind us.
Yes.
And we carry on with what is new.
Right.
And what has changed us and what is starting to become us now. Not what was us.
Yeah.
And so that, I believe that's one thing that a prodigal spouse has to do in returning, is to say, okay, I really got to put everything behind me that was.
Everything. Yeah.
Clothes even sometimes. And I'm not talking like, stole ties or anything like that. That's not necessarily something that I hold on to, but I'm saying that there's stuff that we say, if I hang on to this, then I still have a part of who I was. Right. And one of the scariest things is letting go of what we believed we had control of.
Wow. That's good. Yeah, I really like that. How do you feel about that, Frank? What are your thoughts on that? About leaving everything behind and presenting yourself as this new individual, and all that stuff that may have been a part of your life out there, not having a place in this new life with your spouse.
Like anything else, it's a process. Like I said, you develop things, you develop habits, and it's just hard to kind of let go, especially when you feel like you're being told you have to. The decision has to come from within.
Right.
That decision might take time to do what we're talking about.
Yeah. But hopefully,
again, it's like recovery.
Yeah.
Like recovery, exactly.
Because until a person is ready to stop,
they won't.
And says, I want to quit, there's nothing that a spouse, there's nothing a parent, there's nothing a sibling, There's nothing the best friend can ever say or do to make them quit.
Yeah.
And so you're right, it is a process. It's just like coming off of something, off of drugs or alcohol. You're going to have that withdrawal. You're going to have that time of feeling like you're losing something. Like you're even losing yourself because you're giving up something that wasn't really that good in the first place.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's good. That is so good. So, Brother Charles, I know that you had your experience as being a prodigal. So share some of your testimony with us.
Okay. Well, all of ours really started in 99 to some degree with a coworker, and things got better. But then in 2000, whenever I got hurt with my arm at a wood mill I worked at, my arm got rolled up a conveyor belt and almost lost my life. But God brought us out of that, but things I'm not going to say got better. In fact, really, I think it was a kind of a foothold for Satan to try to use against us, against me and my wife.
Yeah.
And I got to a point to where I felt like I was wronged. I had been wronged. I couldn't trust my wife for being a partner. I couldn't, I couldn't believe that she would be there all the time and all. And so that caused me to start looking and wanting to find some kind of other attention and somebody else to, feel what I wanted them to feel for me, to feel sorry for me, to feel some pity for me, to feel like you were wronged also, them to kind of give me some validation in how I was feeling type of thing.
Yeah.
And I started holding things against my wife and and feeling like that she should prove to me rather than me forgiving her or saying this isn't right, that I need to do something different also.
Yeah.
And so it carried on from there, and really I started getting back to being unfaithful in about 2002 or so, and ended up getting into a relationship with somebody else and leaving and all, and trying to live my life like that. And that carried on for a few years. Ended up having my own apartment. We actually ended up getting divorced in 2005.
Wow.
And I thought everything was okay. I had two other relationships besides that after the one that caused me to leave in the first place. And for the longest time, none of it was ever good. It was fun for a time. It was what I thought I wanted, but none of it was ever good. And I finally got to a point in 2007 that I really didn't have anywhere else to go. And so I ended up, I say this, that God did this, but I was literally at a point where I had no choice but to come home. I wasn't ready at the time, but I did. And I did realize that I actually still did love my wife and wanted our family. And we ended up getting remarried in 2008. But unfortunately, Satan still had this hold on me that I wanted to have a life of fun and a life of things that I wanted.
Yeah.
And I ended up leaving in November of 2009 for somebody different again. And I was with that person until 2013. And we'd actually gotten away from each other finally. I came back home late 2013.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, Satan doesn't like to lose. If he can. If he can not have to lose, he doesn't like to. Or he doesn't like to let things go anyway.
Right.
In January 2014, this person came back in to my life to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still foolish enough at the time that I allowed her to do this. But by that time, she was involved with methamphetamines.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was stupid enough to get involved with that because I had this. I will say this much: you can have an addiction to a person that you feel like this person you want to do something for. You would almost do anything.
Yeah.
To try to prove something and to try to do something for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I ended up doing. And I kept it as quiet as I possibly could. And then I ended up finding a job, and it was like overnight night watching a house that was in construction. But I used that time to basically I got into dealing. Because I thought, well, if I could do this, then at least I could pay for what I'm using and for what this person's using and be okay.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up getting involved with it more than that. Because unfortunately, not only was I addicted to this person, I was addicted to using. I also, in so many ways, became addicted to the deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I kept thinking, if I just do this deal, then I can make some money, but it was never enough. I kept wanting to get more stuff and keep doing these deals, thinking I could make more money.
Yeah.
Not realizing this person was actually pretty much causing me to be broke anyway. And I'm going to say it like this: if there's ever a time afterwards, in hindsight, that God has shown me that there is a way for a demon to be in the body of a person and have control, this woman showed me that.
Wow.
I literally believe that there was some kind of principality there that was a part of her that was not holy or of this world.
Yeah, yeah.
And it got worse, and ended up going to jail in August, late part of August of 2014. And I was at the point where the day I got out was actually the day before mine and my wife's wedding anniversary.
Wow.
And I had nowhere to go again. And so I ended up coming home. And this was August 30th of 2014. And so it would have been 6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 years since we gotten remarried. And spent the next day with my family, not necessarily in the best of moods or anything. And my family was busy with my daughter showing animals. But then I kept trying to hold on to this person, kept trying to do things for them. And literally was driving from where we live to Oklahoma City, which was about a 45-minute drive.
Yeah.
Every chance I got to do this or do that. And it finally came down to one night I did this. And it was always against, my wife's wishes of doing this. I was taking a pack of cigarettes to this person that I had. And she actually made the statement that, well, they're not my brand, but I guess they'll do. No, no thank you, no anything. Just and I cried out that night and I said, God, I said, I can't keep doing this. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm finished. I said, I don't even know if you're hearing me right now, but I'm tired. If this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, if this is not where I'm supposed to be, then you're going to have to stop this. And it was literally that next weekend, I never heard from that person that weekend.
Mm.
And that Friday night, I prayed, and then I said, God, I said, if this is what you're doing, then allow this person not to contact me at all the rest of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And that Sunday morning, September 21st, 2014, is one of those days I'll never forget. It was a day that it was about 6 o'clock in the morning. And I was dead asleep. I mean, I sleep really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like somebody in our bedroom yelled and said, enough.
Mm.
And I sat up out of bed, and I sat there. I mean, I looked around the room because I thought somebody was in the room.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And I heard these words. It was like it was coming from my heart. It said, from my heart of hearts, it said, I answered your prayer. Now what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, sorry. But we went to church that day, and I ended up talking to one of the pastors there, and we didn't go to our church that we were members of, but I didn't feel like I could at that time.
Yeah, yeah.
But we ended up going to another church that was very, it was the same denomination and all. But I talked to one of the pastors there, and we prayed and all, and I started going forward. I even changed my phone number. It started doing things differently. I got clean, and I'd love to say that was the end of that part, but it wasn't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because February of 2015, it was about 5 months, I ended up relapsing.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking to myself, if I could just use just enough for myself,
yeah,
and be okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It wasn't really that bad for me, type of thing. And a lot of it was because I didn't get any help after I got clean. I thought since I was clean, I was good. And I'm not kidding when I say again that the devil hates to lose, because literally about a week after I started getting stuff again, that woman popped back up out of nowhere.
Wow.
5 months of no contact or anything. And she got in touch with me through a messenger I forgot I had on my phone. And I was thinking, because she was in another relationship and with somebody different, I thought, well, this will be okay, because then I could just, I don't have to deal with her that much. I guess I could try to be friends with her. And it went downhill very quickly from there. Wow. I got back into dealing and doing all that. And then a lot of people think this part's really the crazy part, because my wife knew what was going on. And she hated it. But then she was also worried about what might happen if I was arrested, or if I got into a bad accident or something like that. And so, by April 16th, 2015, I came home early that morning, and I was so tired, even after using stuff and all. And I went to sleep, but my wife was awake, and I'd taken my wedding ring off the night before. I can't remember exactly why, but I did, and so she was upset about that. Well, I got up. Well, she was leaving. I thought she was going to work that morning, and I went outside to try to talk to her, and I was upset, and I went back in, I think, to grab my shirt and my shoes. And by then she had went to our barn and hid the stuff that I had in the barn. I left in the truck, and she left. Well, I packed stuff. I was leaving. I was going to walk somewhere. I didn't care, because we only had one vehicle. And I was just so tired I couldn't. So I thought, well, I'll just go back to the house and rest for a while. And I fell asleep on our couch. And mind you, my first stepdad was a police officer. And so I knew what a police officer's knock on the door was like. I knew that. I knew how they did things.
Yeah.
And so about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I hear this really loud knock on our front door. And I kind of opened my eyes and I thought, I bet you that's the police. And so I got up and I opened our door real slow and I kind of just stood there. And the deputy sheriff poked his head around the door and asked me my name and all. And I said, yeah, that's me. And I stepped outside and was talking with him. And he told me what all he knew. And I said, yeah, you're right. And so my wife had actually went and turned me in.
Oh, okay. So was that the final turnaround for you and your wife?
That really was.
So your wife turned you in.
And yep. Yeah, and I went to jail that day, and it changed a lot of things. I ended up getting out a month later through some different things. And I did. I changed a huge amount while I was in there. I say it like this, is that I could only say that it was God working, because literally I went in on a Thursday, and that Monday, or that next Tuesday, well, one night actually, I was slept through getting my dinner that night, and so I asked one of the detention guys that was working. I said, "Hey," I said, "is there any way I can get like something to eat, because I don't know why nobody woke me up or anything, so I could get dinner." He's like, "Yeah, I'll figure something out." Well, he pulls me out of the pod I was in, and he has a full tray for me. And because I didn't know I had money on my books and I could make phone calls, I asked him, I said, "Can I call my wife just at least for one time around?" And he said, "Yeah, you can call her." And they weren't supposed to allow me to do that. But this guy did.
Yeah.
And so I talked to her, and she told me what all she, that she had made it to where I could make phone calls and stuff from inside the pod I was in. I said, all right. And I told her I loved her, and that, I didn't blame her.
Yeah.
I was glad she did that. I was glad because realistically, if she hadn't have done all that, then right now I'd probably either be dead or in prison.
Wow. So her turning you in was a good thing. And I'm assuming that once you got out, that was the final reconciliation, you and your wife.
I ended up going and getting help, real professional help, and dealing with things and learning a lot of stuff and working through the steps.
Yeah.
And all, and that's the only way I've been clean for 6.5 years now.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest with you, that stuff doesn't go away that easy. I mean, it's probably been a couple of years anyway, thank goodness. But literally one night I had a dream that I was smoking meth, and I could literally see the smoke. I could see the pipe in my fingers, and I woke up. I mean, I'm sweating. I'm thinking, praise God, that wasn't real.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it literally felt real to me.
Yeah.
And I just, I thank God that it was just a bad dream.
Yeah. Well, praise God, it was a bad dream. More like a nightmare. More like a nightmare, probably. Yeah. So praise God, you and your wife were reconciled, and it's been what, about almost 7 years now? 6 years?
It's been, well, it's 2015, so 6 years. I mean, it's almost 7 years now.
Yeah.
So true restoration began.
Yeah. So,
and I will say this much is,
go ahead.
Restoration, to me, whenever people talk about restoration, I'm sure that you're seeing this now, is that it's not one day. Correct. It's a lot like salvation. It's not one day.
Correct.
Salvation is not just one day. Salvation is the rest of your life.
Right.
It's a work in progress daily.
Mm.
And the same way with marriage restoration is that it's a work in progress daily.
Yeah.
We aren't just restored and go on our happy way. It's constant looking at things and realizing and thinking about things we never thought about before.
Yeah. So I would imagine that is what you would say to either a spouse or the prodigal who's out there, that it's a process, that it takes time. It's not just one day. And it's great, the analogy to compare it to salvation. Excuse me, because salvation, is immediate, but sanctification is a process, a lifelong process. So that's a great analogy, because coming back together, that restoration, you're coming back together, you're here right now back together, but the restoration is going to take some time.
Right.
Yeah. So that's great. And I appreciate you being open and transparent and sharing so much of your story with us, because it's not always easy to open up and to share. I was saying to one of my sisters today that a lot of us go through these types of things, but not everyone is either comfortable with or meant to share their stories. But for some of us, that's our calling, is to share our stories, to be an encouragement to others, to let other couples know that it's possible. Because we've gone through some real stuff, Brother Charles.
Yeah.
We've gone through some real stuff in our marriages. So other people who are going through it, our stories can help to encourage them and let them know that whatever it looks like now, it doesn't have to remain that way. Whatever it looks like now, that's not the end, because God will restore. God absolutely will restore to the degree that we allow him to, and that we open ourselves up to that process. So I want to thank you so much for being here with us today. Frank, anything you want to say?
No, thank you.
So I appreciate you again.
Thank you all.
Story, I wish that your lovely wife could have been here with us today, but you represented her well. I'll put it like that. You represented her well. So I just want to thank you, and I wish we had more time, that we could get a little bit more of your story, and perhaps we'll get you to come back on again and share a little bit more. Okay.
Well, thank you for being patient with me this evening.
Thank you. And I'll be seeing you on the Prodigal's Perspective.
Right.
So again, those of you who are watching, Brother Charles Case, he has a Facebook group by the name of the Prodigal's Perspective. The Prodigal's Perspective. You can find it on Facebook, and join the group. And you can get there's a wealth of information to get there. You can get encouragement there. You can share your story there. And it's a safe space. I found it to be a safe space to both share information and to receive information, knowledge, very helpful knowledge to help get you through that process. So God bless you, brother. And I'll be seeing you in the Prodigal Perspective group. God bless you.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So again, thank you guys for hanging in there with us. I appreciate you being here. Share this video. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Even if you're not watching it on YouTube right now, go to the YouTube channel, Marriage Beyond the Breach. Go to Marriage Beyond the Breach YouTube channel and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. And I just want to encourage you. Those of you who may be having challenges in your marriage right now, your spouse may have left the marriage, they may be with someone else. I just want to tell you, it doesn't have to be the end, because Frank and I were at that place ourselves. So we are living examples. We are living examples that doesn't have to be the end. And I would encourage you, if you need help, if you are the spouse at home, if you are the prodigal spouse, and Either way, or if you have reconciled and you need help navigating whichever place you may find yourself in, reach out to Marriage Beyond the Breach. Marriage Beyond the Breach, where it is our strong belief that, hey, Femi, hey, brother Femi, God bless you. It's our strong belief that when two people are committed to each other, committed to their marriage, committed to the process of doing the work, and they have God in the center of their lives and they rely completely on God, that no marriage, no relationship is beyond redemption. So again, thank you for watching. God bless you, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.